Nicole Scott here from Mobile Geeks, and here I am at Chiang Kai-shek Memorial Hall, and today I'm going to be reviewing the Sony Xperia Z2. So this is released only 6 months after the Sony Xperia 1, which was their previous flagship device. A lot's changed, but actually a lot has stayed the same. Let's find out if it's worth the upgrade. So before we get into the phone, we're going to check out what's inside the box. So the Sony Xperia Z2, it comes with LTE, even though in Taiwan there is no LTE. So we have the smartphone itself. Then if you get into the box a little bit more, we have a nice PSU. We have the docking station, which is fantastic. So this is to save you from having to open up the dustproof and waterproof ports all the time. It's a lot of wear and tear, really convenient, totally love the dock. There's actually an extra bit for the dock in case that gets damaged. You have a USB cable right here. And the thing that I really want to get into is the headset. So these are a noise canceling headset. So these are the fabulously named MDR NC31E, and they also have 31EM. So if you look at the headphones themselves, you'll see that on the backs, they actually have little microphones. So that's for the active noise canceling. Now, when I initially heard this, I was a little disappointed because I thought the noise canceling was going to happen on chip on the phone. Because I know the Snapdragon series, I believe the 801 does have that. So I was a little disappointed in that. But you need to check because not every country is going to get these shipped in the box. So you might just get a regular pair. And you'll need to pay $60 for these pair if they're not available in your country. The Sony Xperia Z2 is 5.2 inches with a display resolution of 1920 by 1080. The battery, RAM, and processor have all been upgraded as well from the original Z1. The new flagship comes with a 3200 mAh battery, 3 GB of memory, and a quad-core 2.3 GHz Snapdragon 801 processor. Aside from a new set of stereo speakers, the external look of the Xperia Z2 is pretty much unchanged, including an all-glass front and back, IP58 certified waterproofing, and a dedicated camera key. Sony has also gotten rid of the anti-shatter film it laid over the Z and Z1 screens, which was actually scratched pretty easily. We haven't had this device long enough to tell how it stands up over time, but since it's glass, we do know it will scratch eventually. The water and dust-proof IP58 rating is for protection against dust and water. What this means is that you can submerge the device up to 1 meter for as long as 30 minutes, but from experience, we would suggest you don't actually take it into the bath or a hot spring. We think that the changes in temperature actually make the device a little less waterproof than we would like. And, well, if you put your device in hot water, it might come out just a little bit glitchy. Design-wise, this is not a departure from the Z1. It still has a solid aluminum frame that goes all the way around the phone, which you'll need since it is made of glass. Apart from squeezing in a 5.2-inch display into essentially the same frame as the 5-inch Z1, you'll find a small change in the way that the edge meets the glass on the front. We wouldn't exactly call it raised, but it definitely feels sharper in the hand. The Z2's triluminous mobile display is not only slightly larger, it's also the first IPS display in the Sony Xperia Z range. So this will actually give you slightly better viewing angles. Here we tested outdoors in the shade on a very sunny day. The Z2 is also the first phone to utilize Sony's new live color LED imaging technology. Sony hasn't given a class on how it works, but they describe it as the use of red and green phosphor with blue LEDs and customized color filters to produce a brighter, more uniform light. The display is definitely brighter, but we also feel the colors are a little bit blown out and oversaturated when you put it side by side against the Z1. You'll see here that the blues are way overdone, and on this photo, the levels of orange are completely different. So after taking a look at a few comparison shots, let's look at why the photos on here look a bit blown out. So if we turn on the X-Reality for mobile, you'll see that the blues on here just went like crazy saturated up in there. And if we head back to the X-Reality, turn that off, right, and everything's just a little more reasonable and the greens aren't as blown out. So if you want more a realistic color, I would keep that function turned off. Otherwise, it will definitely oversaturate and overblow all your photos. Here's a look at a series of photos comparing the two displays. The other thing to keep in mind is since the Z2 maintains the same 1080p resolution and it has the increased size, the pixel density is slightly lower, 423 versus 441 on the Z1. But we just call this an interesting fact since both displays look extremely sharp. So Sony has so many things going on with their camera that we're actually going to have an independent video. But for right now, I was just going to quickly show you a few of the things that they have going on in the back here. So we have 4K time shift up to 120 frames per second, background defocus, augmented reality, as we can have a dinosaur chase us. You can go auto to Vine. But if we're in manual and you go into settings, this is one of the cool things, is that you can choose resolution. So 16 by 9, I'm at 15.5 megapixels. If I want to go all the way up to 20, I have to hit 4.3. So just a lot going on here, but let's check out background defocus. It works by taking two pictures in quick succession at different focal lengths, letting you artfully blur the background for a DSLR-like narrow depth of field effect. The slider lets you decide how much blur you want. One thing you'll notice here is that there's a significant amount of lag when we wait for the photo to be processed. Even with the extra 1 GB of RAM, we're still waiting like around 10 seconds. We'll get into more detail about the camera in our dedicated review, but we think that this photo is worth the wait because it is pretty stunning. So now what about the addition of the front-facing speakers? We have a small slit here and one up there. So if we head into the Walkman, I'm going to play some postmodern jukebox for you because I'm gonna pop some tags. Only got $20 in my pocket. Looking for a come up. This is freaking awesome. Walking through the club like what up, I'm such a. To be honest with you, it's a little disappointing. The sound isn't as big as I thought it would be. It sounds a little bit tinny. I'm not super on. I mean, it's okay. It's okay if you like personally want to hear something, but you definitely can't really share. Definitely can't be sharing your music with a group. I mean, maybe if you were taking a bath, a cold water bath in a bathroom, probably have some good echo there. But filling a room, definitely not. These headphones are an amazing accessory. There's a microphone on the back here for the noise canceling. And that's actually happening on chip on the headphone themselves. So for that to happen, we need a 5-pin audio connector, which is happening right here. So you can see that 5-pin audio accessory connected. So that will actually power the noise canceling in the headset. So that's about all we're going to show you here at Chiang Kai-shek Memorial Hall. Now we're going to head back to the studio where Johnny is checking out the gaming performance of the Z2.
Nice.
When it comes to battery life, Sony has included a lot of really good options. So stamina mode is incredibly aggressive in keeping you active all day long. So if we go into the back end, you look into power management, there's a lot of different apps or integrations that Sony has used to extend your battery life. Now, if we head into stamina mode, there's actually even extended standby. So definitely no problems going all day long. 3200 milliampere battery. The Z1 had a 3000 milliampere, but this has a 0.2-inch larger display. But having said all of that, it should be roughly on average of what I expected from the Z1, which I thought was absolutely no problem. Now, when it comes to software, the Z2 is running KitKat and the Z1 is running 4.3. But the thing is, this UI looks very, very similar. The biggest difference off the top is the quick launch. So here we have buttons directly, which is nice to go into settings. Here you have to do click, click, which I'm personally not the biggest fan of. But apart from that, there are some really nice software additions on the Z2. So if we just head into personalize, I'm just going to go down the list. So we can do motion. So you can do smart call handling, which is cool. So answering the phone directly to your ear or shake the device to reject, ringer off, place it face down. So that's quite nice. We also have clear view notifications. So as soon as you pull down your notification bar, you won't have to say clear all. Manage notifications, so you can select what shows up there. I've been getting Asphalt 8 settings like nobody's business. I'm not interested in that at all. So yeah, so you can just go through and say, I never want to know about real racing or update center or whatever. So that's quite nice. So let's head back and do display. So X-Reality for mobile, I went over that in display, why I don't like having that checked. Glove mode, great in the winter if you're from a cold country like Canada, like myself. Brightness. Smart backlight control. This is kind of nice. So if you're looking at it, this is something that I notice that I don't have when I switch smartphones. So if I don't have this, I kind of miss it. So this is one of those features that it's interesting to have. You don't think it's useful, but once it's gone, you kind of miss it. So tap to wake up, totally love this feature. Best feature ever. Had that for the first time on my LG G2, but I think Nokia had it a while back as well. So if you saw that, yeah, occasionally I have trouble kind of pulling down the notification bar. I'm not sure what that's about. Let's just keep on going down. Oh, I didn't go into sound. So high res via USB. Yeah, pretty standard in there. Start power management. So it's definitely, I mentioned this in battery life, but I think it's worth a mention again that the software pack included for battery management on the Z1 totally won me over. And I think it's just something that also on the Z2, they've obviously knocked it out of the park. So in security, we can have face to unlock. Now I know that you can pretty much hack this with a photo of your face, but still, if you don't want to have a pattern, you can just kind of quickly use your face to unlock your phone, which is kind of nice. It's just so quick. Yeah, so there's other settings back in here. Anything else? Oh, we can also do printing, cloud print, accessibility, and there's a whole bunch of stuff here for if you can't see, other things like that. So I'm a big fan of the Sony UI. I think it's very nicely laid out, nice and simple. If we head here, you can organize your apps by alphabetical, most used, and then if you can't find something that you know you've installed, you can just install it. Now the other thing that requires a separate video, like I mentioned before, is the camera. The software on this is unbelievable. If we get into the, let me just head into the, let's say, album. Here we go. Yeah, so there's just some really great stuff that you can do with this device, like slow motion video. So this is me playing with the lighter in slow motion. So like the software that's been included in this, I just think is really fantastic. So that's normal speed. Oh, I guess that one wasn't the slowed down one. Maybe it was the next one. Yeah, that was it. So actually, I'm gonna be doing fire hands. I'm gonna let my hand on fire and use this. So this is just a teaser of the things that I'm gonna be getting into with the software on this device. So yeah, pretty nice software stack. I'm a big fan, nice and simple. So why don't we just quickly compare these two devices? The obvious is 5.2 inch versus 5 inch. Snapdragon 801 versus Snapdragon 800. 3 gigabytes of RAM versus 2. They both have a 1080p display. This one is just a smidgen thinner, and this one is just a smidgen lighter. So I think it's 170 versus 163, right? So I mean, it's just 7 or 8 grams lighter. The thinness is marginal. I mean, like overall, the length is just a little bit longer. But some other noticeable differences is the camera button on the Z2 is a little bit longer. Everything else is kind of the same on this side. And then on this side, we actually have a combined SD card and micro USB cable flap. So here, instead of just the one, you have, or just the two separate ones, you have the one big flap. But what I think is just key about this is that you shouldn't be opening any flaps anyways for charging. You should really be using the dock. The wear and tear on this, it's just eventually going to break off. But overall, it's definitely an incremental upgrade. So what about pricing? Well, it's about $750 to start, which if you put it up against, say, the Samsung Galaxy S5, which is starting at about $850, it's kind of a steal for a flagship device, but then everything's relative when you start heading up into the $700-800 price range. It's expensive. It's a flagship device. If you can get it on contract for, 100 or 200 bucks, it's a great deal. But it's a flagship device at a flagship price. What else can I say? So all in all, what did I think of the Xperia Z2? I absolutely love this phone. If you're gonna buy it, you're definitely not gonna regret it. The camera is amazing. They have some extra features like the slow-mo and the 4K if you wanna push stuff to your TV to do some sharing. Sony also has throw and mirroring. So Sony's really creating an overall ecosystem for sharing your content. I mean, Sony does have Sony, which, the theater, they make the movies, right? So, I mean, they're starting to try to roll in all of this kind of ecosystem stuff around content where you have your own content, you have their content, you have 4K, you have 4K TVs. I mean, Sony sells TVs, right? So they're really thinking ecosystem when it comes to, and the PlayStation, obviously, right? So obviously the PlayStation as well, right? That is your home media server, your personal cloud, creating a nice ecosystem for your content there as well, right? So overall, Sony has me sucked in a little bit because of those points. But if we're just looking straight handset, I like the hand feel. I prefer having a case on it. It does feel a little bit slippery, but the glass on the back and the front feel very, very nice, very sleek. I like that they've gotten rid of that plastic layer from the previous one that was scratching up a little bit easily. Only time will tell if the glass will stand up better in terms of scratches. I've never had much luck keeping a phone scratch-free. So on the back and the front, that just seems like two surfaces that I'm going to destroy. So be warned about that one. When it comes to the software, I love that it has KitKat. I love that Sony has a nice, simple UI with their Xperia, nice and simple, nice widgets. I was a little bummed that they changed the quick settings to a second click to go back, and they just lost them right across the top, because I feel like that's kind of a lot of unnecessary clicking. So that was a little bit unfortunate there. And the notification menu, that's generally one of the things that's harder to skin when you're looking at putting a theme on top of, I love Nova Launcher, and generally you have to keep the notification bar for that. So that they don't have a strong notification bar, or one that's suited to my preference, is a little bit of a thumbs down for the software iteration on the Z1. When it comes to battery life, they have included a larger battery, 3200 milliampere versus the 3000 on the Z1. Now we do have the larger display, which is going to be eating a little bit more battery, but Sony has their really aggressive, finely tuned stamina mode, and you can go even deeper, right? So I went over this in the battery section, that Sony has some nice additions that will give you all-day battery life for sure, 100%. So that's very important to me. Having long all-day battery life is extremely important, because if you can't use your phone, what's the point in having it? But one thing that I did notice is that if I was aggressively using it, like you do when you're first reviewing a phone, you're running the benchmarks, you're going through all the games, you're just playing with it and playing with it and playing with it. And I went to bed, didn't plug it in, got up in the morning and made it back to work. So that says quite a lot. The only other thing that I wasn't that fond of that Sony did do is that when you pull up Google Now, you hit the home button and then it gives you the option to go to like Sony What's New. I mean, I don't really care what Sony thinks I should be downloading. I'm going to go right to Google Play. And it's a little bit intrusive that every time I want to launch into Google services, Sony's trying to get me into the what's Sony What's New. Anyways. Also, I wish I could skin over that, or they didn't include that, or there was an option to turn that part off. I'm not a big fan of that as well. So, The big question actually is, if you have a Z1, are you going to be upgrading to the Z2? The answer to me is likely no. I'm a Sony fangirl. But if I had the Z1 and I had to fork out $700, $750 for a new one, and the Z1's only 6 months old, let's say I could get $400 for it, and then the price, say that on this went down to $6, and then I only had to pay $2 for the upgrade, I might do it. Yeah, I'd probably do it if I could sell my phone for, say, $450, and I could pick this up for $6. So this isn't going to be happening tomorrow, because the price is probably going to stay around $750 for a little while, because this is brand new. But yeah, that's the one thing. So they've obviously included a lot of really cool new features. The 4K, the time shift, slightly lighter, like 7 grams, which isn't that big of a deal. I mean, 7 grams, we talk about it in tech journalism like it's a big deal, but I mean, 7 grams, come on now, it's like, what, 8 grams of rice? I don't know, I've never measured it, but I'm sure it's very little. The bigger display, also really nice in the same form factor, totally worth upgrading for, but if I had to chunk down $700, not sure if I'm making that move. So, that's my overall recommendation. I absolutely love this phone. If you have the Z, then I would 100% upgrade the Z1, maybe not, because you're still getting all this awesome Sony love, great camera. If you don't have a Sony, and you just have some other random device, that you do need to buy a new phone. Waterproof, dust resistant, you can drop it in the toilet by accident. You can accidentally go swimming, right? There's just so many great things. And they have the dock that you just dock it in to charge it up. That's also fantastic, So there's these really great things about getting a Sony that you should really consider picking this up. So I'm Nicole Scott for Mobile Geeks, taking a look at the Sony Xperia Z2. Big fan. Admittedly, I'm a little bit of a Sony fan. So Nicole Scott for Mobile Geeks, let me know if you've picked one up, what you think of it in the comments. I have this for several more days, probably another week. We'll see how long they let me keep it. Yeah, and if there's anything else you want to see, definitely let me know. We're going to be doing a huge camera review on this. I have fire hand ready, so I'm going to set my hand on fire and slap someone in the butt. Nobody's volunteered yet, so we'll see who it's going to be. So I'm Nicole Scott for Mobile Geeks, taking a look at the Sony Xperia Z2.